Power. We have some of the awesome minds behind the creation of Turtles and this amazing documentary. First, might as well start off with the co-creator of the Ninja Turtles themselves, Mr. Kevin Eastman. And the writer and director of the Turtle Power documentary, Mr. Randall Lobb. We have executive producers for the film, Mr. Isaac Elliott Fisher. Mr. Mark Husey as well. Another executive producer, also producing the new Ninja Turtles movie as well, Mr. Galen Walker. Yeah, soak it up. Embrace it. Wipe your shells down.
We're gonna do a calendar.
Someone drank all that water.
And for those of you who don't know who I am, probably most of you, I'm Jose Sanchez, host of the Electric Playground, in case you're any fans of awesome playground. So we are talking about, 30 years of Ninja Turtles. That's a lot of history to look back on. Kevin, did you ever think 30 years later that you'd be doing a panel at the greatest celebration of all things amazing and amazeballs at Comic-Con talking about the Turtles?
Well, the first thing I like to point out is that the reason I'm here 30 years later, it's all your fault. You're the best fans in the world. No, when Peter and I did the first issue, we were absolutely positive we would not sell one single copy of besides the family, friends, aunts and uncles and stuff. We never thought we'd sell a single copy of the first issue, and the fact that we are here 30 years later is because you guys found something you love in the Turtles and you followed it for all this time, and it means the world to me. You've given me the greatest job in the world, and I sincerely thank you. Thank you.
Randall, you're trying to put all of this, together, to have to dig through the 30 years of history. What made you even want to do such a crazy thing?
It was the crazy guy to my left right now. So, here's how that happened. Before the Turtle Doc, Mark Hussey and I worked together doing more, documentaries about, no joke, Cambodian landmine victims, Mr. Akira who demines mines in Cambodia with a shovel, docs like that. And it wasn't, on our radar necessarily to do a pop culture doc or pop culture fans. We worked on another project with Isaac. He approached us and he said, got a great idea. And he said, I want to do a documentary on TMNT. And I said, no. And Mark said, yes. And the reason why I said no was because I had heard that Kevin Eastman is the meanest.
It's all true.
The reason why I said no is I thought it's probably a huge project and has a ton of rights issues. But it was true, by the way. But then, as we got into it, Isaac's enthusiasm and his ability to drag us into water deeper than we can swim forces us to tread and then climb up to the surface. And then, honestly, the reality is, this guy made it possible, and Peter Laird made it possible by being supportive and by being kind and by saying to us, tell you what, here's everything. And it was amazing. Couldn't have done it without Kevin and Peter. That's the reality.
Hey, Peter Laird.
And just to say, not only were they so kind to us, before we met Kevin, he said, yeah, you can stay at my place in LA. He had a house for sale, and he said, you can just camp there. And so we did. We literally camped in his place. And nobody would do that. And I recommend that you don't ask him. I'm not saying that's a great way to meet him.
I figured, how dangerous could Canadians be, really?
But it's true. I think he immediately knew that we were good guys and that we wanted to tell the story the right way. We made it very clear we didn't want to tell a bad story. We didn't want to tell an ugly story. We wanted to tell an awesome story, and I hope we did that.
That's right.
You have a pretty epic toy collection that I just got to see. Did that have any sort of
help in your decision that you wanted to make this happen?
Yeah, I mean, I know that I have a smaller toy collection than some people in this room, for a fact. But no, toys, I mean, for me, the toys I think was really the first thing that caught my attention as a kid. And so it carried that interest all the way through when I was collecting toys in college. I was collecting a lot of different stuff. And I wanted to get into the history of where these toys came from. As many of you here, you got drawn in by the design, by the look, by the feel, like by the mystique, the backstory. And I wanted to know where these came from, like what's the backstory. And I found that there wasn't a lot. I mean, Kevin had done an awesome book, this Arto biography, if I remember correctly. And that was more or less it, I mean, in terms of like history written down stuff. So I said, you know what, it would be really cool to see a doc like this, but it'd be really even cooler to work on one. And I thought I could just get somebody coffee or something. And then we ended up making it. So it was pretty awesome.
How many years? 5 years?
5.5 years.
5.5 years.
It was,
He had hair when we first met him.
I did. I did.
And I was a woman.
That's right.
And Galen, having worked on the last TMNT animated film and getting to work on the new one, how was it to see, that growth from these characters that were just a comic book 30 years ago, cartoon, we had a few movies, and now we're all of a sudden this huge, big production of Turtles?
You guys hear me okay? It's such an amazing trip just to be part of this franchise, and someone like Kevin, who's such a great guy, and Peter. Back in 2003, when we went out to see Peter and talk with Kevin and got to make the animated movie, nobody thought it would happen. Everybody said it's over. And then we made the animated movie, and then we talked about making another movie, and everybody said it's over, it won't happen. And then, literally, here comes Viacom, and Turtles launch on Nick, and then boom, we're at Paramount. But it won't happen. And I met Randall and the guys at 2009 at the Empire State Building, and they told me about this great doc, and that we had lit up. It was the 25th anniversary, and they lit the tower green, and they sent me the doc, and I was just blown away. They had stuff in this doc I'd never even seen. I couldn't believe what they got. I couldn't believe they had footage of it, and I couldn't believe they got clearance for all this stuff. And not to mention, I want to say one thing, which is the most important. Documentaries are very, very hard to make, and they're very hard to get people to want you to make them and get people to distribute them, which was my sole job, just trying to get this thing out there for you guys. That's all I did. These guys worked and never stopped working, and never stopped traveling with their own money, their own feet, their own dreams, and pushed this thing and made it amazing. And my hat is off to these guys up here, because they killed it. So I had to get in, so I had to help, and I threw the Hail Mary pass at Paramount, and we pulled it off. But really, it's a great, great piece of work, and I hope that the whole world checks it out, because it's amazing.
Thanks, man.
You bet.
And Mark, and I guess the rest of the guys too, what did your family and friends think about during this 5-year journey of putting this piece together?
Well, thankfully I have a supportive family, and my wife who's here, very supportive. Two little girls, 4 and 2, shout out to them too. But they were actually neither of them were born before they started. So I had black hair, no kids, and now I've not only birthed 2 children, but helped to birth this documentary. And the thing about this documentary that was awesome, and actually there was a lot of synchronicity as we're working constantly on this story and hearing Kevin and Peter's story, and there's a famous thing that always stuck with me, least famous in our circle, is something that resonated with me where he said that it's all about happy accidents. And as this documentary unfolded, it was happy accident upon happy accident. It was meeting Kevin, meeting Peter, meeting Galen, and all kinds of people, over these 5 years, that just kept getting bigger and better and more exciting. So, as we were excited, I think that infused our family and friends who, thankfully we had good support who weren't saying, look, you're putting more money into this, you gotta pay for another flight or whatever to wherever. Yeah.
Yeah, just to jump in, we all had day jobs the whole time we made this.
I never
Isaac had one day job. I'm a liar. There's no Doc. I made it up. This is not Kevin Eastman. It's my cousin Gary. No. The reality is, even if you didn't have a day job, you had some day jobs. Like, this wasn't our primary focus, and it was demanding, and it was hard, and it wasn't hard because it was hard because just like Kevin and Peter tried to sell that comic, they decided, we're gonna do something that we think is cool, and we're gonna like it hard enough that will make someone else like it. And we liked this hard enough to make someone else like it. And every time you meet someone and you can communicate that feeling, other people, they like that, right? I mean, we're up here, we're not miserable pricks, we're good people.
Speak for yourself, man.
Speak for yourself. We are. We're miserable. But what you do is, I mean, even if your wife would say to you, really? Yeah, we're going to New York. And we're just going to go to New York and just drive there. And at the border, they stop you and say, why do you have all that equipment? Are you taking a job from an American? Of course not. So you just have to drive forward with that feeling that everything's great. And then eventually your family will think, oh, it must be great. They think so. It just communicates.
You're not taking a job from an American. Are you taking a job from someone from Hollywood? It took 3 guys from Canada to build what you're going to see. That's all I'm going to say.
Should we, I mean, can we take a look at some footage?
You want to see some footage?
You don't have to if you guys don't want to. I guess. I mean, we can make it happen. You guys should think about doing something like that. That'd be awesome.
I'd buy a copy of that.
What were some of the biggest surprises coming out of, you know, searching through the history? Anything kind of take you back?
Yeah.
You weren't expecting?
Well, yeah, I think one of the key things, and you don't see a lot of it in this one, but if you go to the Playmates toy panel, I think it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
One of the craziest things in terms of, just related to your question, is like, you know, nobody expected this, was when Kevin and Peter were doing the initial toy meetings at Playmates. If you think about it, because Playmates was coming up with the cartoon concept and the toy line concept and everything based on their comic book, they were going in lots of different directions. So John Handy, one of the star interviews from the toy part, sent me a box after we had done an interview with him. And I opened this box, and it was all the original toy designs that were predate the cartoon and the writing of it, and it was weird. Like, it was really different. Like, there was just, the characters were, there was like neo-Nazis in it and stuff. It was crazy. There was a face in the wall that spoke to Shredder that was in the sewer lair playset. Like, thank God
There
you
will
guys
be
said
no deity in Playmates.
That's what they said.
No deity.
No
in
deity.
Playmates.
So there's some really cool stuff in there.
So what do you think was the coolest piece of knowledge that you learned from the Turtles?
Randall?
This is not puffery. The coolest piece of knowledge was that everybody was nice.
That's true.
Except for you. You can't. I mean, if you imagine, oh, I'm going to go meet all these people who worked on this project over 30 years, and we're going to meet some nice people, we're going to meet some okay people, and we're going to meet some jerks. 0 jerks. People that, and I won't say any names, people said, oh, don't meet this person, that person's not so great, nice to us. Again and again and again and again. Everybody was awesome. Everybody had goodwill.
Including some of you.
So that's the surprise. Take a random sampling of any group of people, and I dare you, I defy you to find as many awesome people as we met. And that's the truth. It's crazy.
So 0 jerks and tons of liars? Lie? Deceit?
I can say without any doubt that I was the biggest liar that we met in the 5.5 years of making this.
Well, for each of you guys, do you have a favorite piece of Turtle merch?
Oh, man.
Yeah, choose one.
My favorite piece of Turtle merch is a T-shirt that I wanted to wear today at this panel, but I searched and I could not find it in my house. But I found it in the weirdest spot, and I don't even know if it's a real shirt. Well, it's a real shirt, but an official shirt or not. But But it's on the original first issue cover, and I'd never seen a shirt like that. And if anybody has one, I'll buy it off you. Anybody have one? But it looks just like the first issue cover. It's pretty awesome.
I got a turtle wallet.
Nice.
It's pretty awesome.
Yes. Come with props. Kevin, do you have a favorite piece of merch?
Man, there's so many. It's like we actually, my wife and I were back east recently moving around some of the stuff I had in storage, and there's like 40 boxes of stuff. I tried to save everything. But I would go back to the original issues, I think, because to me it was, for Peter and I, we started with the first issue, as I mentioned, we never thought we'd sell one single copy of it. And the second issue means the most, because the second issue to us was when we realized, based on the sales of that issue, if we did 6 of them a year, we could make a living drawing comic books, and we could fulfill our childhood fantasy of becoming Jack Kirby and write and draw comic book stories for a living. So that's probably my favorite piece of this issue too. That was the one that gave me a full-time drawing comic books.
I have one. When I met Peter and Kevin, they weren't living in the same place. Kevin was out here and Peter was back in Northampton, and I had a #1 issue comic book, and I flew back to Hartford and rented a car, and then drove up to Northampton, this little town where Peter lives, and then Peter proceeded to take me on this endless walk through the rain and talking, and I was just there to ask him if we wanted to make another movie, and I felt like they like sound like they're on a roller coaster, like that big ship that swings back and forth.
It's the Vikings panel.
Oh, great. What are they out there? Roar! No. Anyway, so I met with Peter. I was trying to nonchalantly go, I really want to make the CGI film on it, and he just wouldn't talk about any of it. And then when I got back from this long walk, he put his hand up and goes, "Thanks for coming." And I knew I had to get back in the car and drive back to Hartford. So I had the comic book, and I said, "Well, would you just sign this? Because I'm probably never going to see you again in my life." And he goes, "Yeah." And the lawyer was there, and he was like shaking my hand off, like, "Well, thanks for coming. You can make it back to Hartford before it gets dark and catch your plane." And Peter gave me his comic book, and I drove back, and I had this first issue comic book. I'm sitting on the airplane as I'm ordering the stiff drink, going, "What did I just do?" And I opened the book, and Peter drew a turtle, and he wrote, "Let's make a movie, dude."
I can beat it.
Did you ever say, "Let's make a movie, Cowabunga, dude"?
No. My favorite piece of turtle merch is the documentary, and right at the end of it, when we had shot the doc, and we had sold the doc, and the doc was done, and then May of this year, we were part of something that I thought was very touching, and some people who have seen the end of the doc saw that and actually found it touching themselves, including a certain person's wife who's in here somewhere. It's when we shot you guys back in Dover. That was the best thing that I had seen in all the 5.5 years, was seeing Kevin and Peter back together, reminiscing about old times. And you see the end of that in our doc, and it is touching, and it is beautiful, and there's a nice piece of music on it, and that's the takeaway for me, is that moment. And we joked about it when we first started. We said it'd be great if we could end it with seeing those two guys together, just in the same place at the same time. And it happened. And it was touching, that's for real.
What do you think was the most challenging part of making the doc?
Picking the clips. You have it's just 96 minutes of runtime, and we have over 100 hours of footage. And picking, the story arc for this one. And if we were going to sum it all up without giving too much away, I would call this, it's the first. It's kind of the foundation. It's the beginning of everything that you guys are, of everything we saw at Mall H today, 30 years later. This is the why of all of this, and the big part of the why is sitting on the far side of the table, Kevin Eastman. Without him and Peter, not knowing 30 years later that you all would be here, not knowing any of that, but as we were trying to demonstrate in our story, in the movie, the little clip you just watched, just for fun, And for me, that you know, seeing them together 30 years later, seeing Kevin here now, just for fun, you know, as a creator myself, and the three of us as creators, and you know, Galen would probably vouch as a creator himself. You know, those are the kind of things that have inspired, that inspire us. You know, and Rand said, everybody was good, and I think there's something about the good that Kevin and Peter, as people, good people, created, that has created the longevity of the Turtles, and that's why everybody we bumped into on this last 5 years turned out to be good people. There's just something magical about it. Would you agree?
We're all sitting out here right now. So we wouldn't be up here. We wouldn't be up here without you guys out there. So again, you're awesome. Thank you.
I might argue.
Well, that guy over there.
I'll tell you what the biggest challenge was for me, was trying to do something that is the opposite of what the world wants you to do, right? If you called up Nickelodeon right now and said, I'm going to make a documentary about SpongeBob SquarePants, what would their answer be? No. And if you called Paramount and said, hey, why don't you buy our documentary about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? They'd say, no. And if you called your wife and said, I'm going to Los Angeles with my friends, she'd say, no. But she was in Europe, so I was able to come. Our secret. No. Everybody says no to everything that you're going to do all the time, right? And you could easily say no too. Oh, okay, I guess not. So the most challenging thing is just putting your pants on in the morning and saying, well, I don't care if you said no, I'm going to go outside and do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to drive there, and I'm going to go there, I'm going to knock on your door. That Michael Ian Black interview was shot in his basement, in his house, that we drove to. And his wife came home, as we're in his basement with all our gear. And she walked down the stairs and she went, she actually said this, I don't even want to know. And he just looked at her. And she went back upstairs. And I said to him, I'm so sorry. And he said, it's okay. But it wasn't. And that happens all the time. Can we shoot in your house so we don't have to rent a hotel room? Can we stay in your house? Can we come to your house? Will you give us pizza? Do you want to make me some tea? I'm tired. Can I lay on you? No? I think I will anyway. And then I'm going to make a documentary about it. That's what happens. So the biggest challenge is that you're just going to do it anyway. So if you want to do something, just go do it, right? Just go do it.
And don't take no for an answer.
No.
Never, never. My lawyer calls me Moses because he kept saying it'll take a miracle. A lot of fun stuff with the Turtles, you know. There's a lot of no's. These guys were relentless. They never quit. And that's what it took. I mean, because I think everybody who's a fan wants to see this.
So it's a metaphor.
Didn't you say no?
No.
So if you guys had to pick a favorite child, a favorite turtle, not actual children, because some of you are actually here, who would your favorite turtle be and why? You wrote this question. Favorite turtle be? Why?
You want to start down there again?
I can start.
You
You just
start.
asked me behind my back. I did. My favorite turtle is Donatello because the last 3 to 4 months he's been a little icon beside my editing in my editing suite because I think he's keeping all the tech gremlins away. That's right. That's what Donatello's been doing for me.
Mine would be Leonardo. Because sometimes you have to be the leader even though you don't want to be.
Took mine. Yeah, I guess. I think.
And I live on Da Vinci. That's the name of my street.
Oh, I don't got that. I don't know. No, I'm also a big Leo fan.
Raphael.
Mine is Donardo.
Wasn't he in The Godfather?
No, it's always hard. We get asked that a lot, and because I always ask the fans when they come up to the table, I say, "What's your favorite turtle and why?" And it's always such a heartfelt, awesome answer of why they like a particular turtle. And for me, it'd be like again picking your favorite child, and it's impossible to do. I'm always partial to Michelangelo because as you saw, he was the first turtle ever drawn. And his name came later, but he was the first turtle ever drawn. But at the same time, I love the opportunity to tell different stories with each of the turtles because their personalities lend to the story. You know, what you want to tell as a story, almost like the turtle that you choose to tell that story guides you along the way. So it's, but Raphael is one of my favorite. If you've seen any of the short stories I've done over the years, whenever I could do a short story using a turtle, I usually choose Raphael and Casey Jones because they're just the retarded brothers that I always wanted. Three sisters that used to beat me up, but it's fun. I love them all dearly, but Michelangelo, if I had to choose.
Who's your favorite?
My favorite Michelangelo. I mean, he was the party dude. I just had my birthday in April. It was a Ninja Turtle themed party, and I dressed up like Michelangelo. And ate pizza 7 of them. I almost had a heart attack. So within the doc, what do you think fans won't see?
About 198 hours of footage.
But what do you think they won't see that you think they should know?
What the stuff you couldn't get clearance on?
What's the top secret stuff you can't
Me in
tell
my
me?
underwear. Got that scene.
Those are just for me.
Tell the Hinton story about the fire.
So, I will say what's tricky. Steve Barron, the director of the 90 movie, very talented director, and through Kevin's archives, Peter's archives, we put together some behind-the-scenes stuff on that 90 movie that is crazy.
Doesn't exist anywhere else.
It's nowhere else. Over the past few years of making this doc, you get to a point where you have to start to get permission to do stuff. And you have to pay for minutes, right? If we were going to get all the footage from that 90 movie that you would want to see, it would be impossible to pay for. And you know, it's been through company, and right now it's in China, and it's with a company that they don't really specialize in the kind of movie that you would expect, right? They've got a bunch of stuff, and this is just, you know, it's not something that's on their radar, and it took months for them to even get back to us. So we were really heartbroken that we couldn't show a lot of that footage. So that's the toughest part, for sure.
Yeah, they did like, back in the days when they were working on the first movie, they used to send Peter and I dailies, and they did all these fantastic scenes. I mean, one of my favorites that was cut out of the movie was before you saw Casey Jones in the park, there's a straight scene where Steve Barron, the camera sort of moves across this set of trash cans, and there's a rat running by, and it goes up this wall, and you start hearing these TVs come up, and it goes sort of in through the window of this thing, and it goes over a hockey mask, past some golf bags, and it slowly pulls on that exact scene that Peter and I did in the Raphael one-shot, where we wanted a vigilante that didn't have a horrific backstory. He just became a vigilante because he watched too much bad TV. And so it comes up to frame, and there's like 2 or 3 TVs going, and Casey, Elias Mateus leans into frame, and that was the first time you saw him. And it was just such a great setup, and there were so many moments like that that were cut out, and we tried, you know, like you guys did, we tried for about a year to try to get the rights to see if we get Steve Barron to do a director's cut, and it might happen someday, but right now it's like nobody really cares about it, but I'd love to see it personally.
But
There
is some of that stuff in
Yeah.
the doc.
Yeah, it was like,
We got
you
some
pulled out
good
a knife.
stuff.
I gave these guys that came to my house, and I just dug out boxes of videotape and said, I'm not sure exactly what's on it, but here, have at it.
There is some good stuff. But we got some of that good stuff, I think, for sure. We got,
So we've got about 10 minutes left. If anybody would like to ask some questions, there is a microphone here. Line up accordingly. Fashionably lined. No running people over. Don't hurt small children.
Guys,
No
I'm
running at
married.
all. No running at all.
Wait.
There's no more money to spend on hospital bills. Please.
We're Canadian. We don't have to pay for them.
So first of all, thank you very much for all your hard work. And this question is for Kevin Eastman. If you were responsible for writing and directing like a new Ninja Turtle movie, like let's say the one being made, or this is like just a new one coming out that you're responsible for, would you reinvent the Turtles for the movie, or would you base it off of like your previous work, or what did you do for that movie?
If I was completely responsible for a Ninja Turtle movie, actually, when I started working with Galen Walker and Scott Mendick on this new version of the movie, the writer that they brought in one version of the movie that they did is sort of retelling the first movie, paying homage to it and putting the pieces together like that, but maybe making it a little bit edgier and make it a little funnier. But it's a tough choice because that movie is also very precious to all of us. So, but you know, there's so many great turtle stories to tell. It would be hard to pick one, but I have some ideas. Maybe they'll let me do one day. So.
Wow. Thank you. Good question.
So by the 6th movie that they make it with Paramount.
We'll do it with marionettes.
Mariachis.
Testing. 1, 2. First of all, again, great. Really big thanks for making it all the way out here. Obvious that we all appreciate it. For as well, Kevin and Peter chasing their dreams. We wouldn't have all had an awesome childhood and parents the world over getting us pizza every night, even though we were all pretty sick of it. Since you stole my question earlier about favorite turtles, I do have a second one. Growing up, I saw a lot of iterations for different turtles. Comic book, animated, live action, CGI. Do you guys also have like a choice, it goes for everyone as well, favorite choice that best represents your turtle, like your childhood or favoritism?
Now, for me, right away, I have to go with Steve Barron's original movie. That was sort of the perfect hybrid of. It really blended what. When we first met Steve, he came into the meeting with one of those 500-page collections we had done, and he had postmarked scenes from issue 1, Leonardo, issue 10 and 11, and he said this is the foundation of the entire movie. And, so Steve really married both the original black and white comic world with the animated series, and just did a fantastic job. So that's my favorite turtle version.
Originals. Yeah. For me, it's the originals. And I was in Hall H today. I'd say the new ones are awesome too. I like that. So originals and new ones. I like.
Playmates toys for me, man. That's a big one for me.
Wow, it's tough. You know, I have such an affinity for Steve Barron that even when we were going to do the current movie that's coming out in 2 weeks, the first script that we turned into Paramount, I hired a writer named John Fusco because Steve recommended I hire him. And I met him on the phone, and he was such an amazing, awesome dude. I said, we gotta write a script. And it was a reboot, but I have to tell you, I love those original Turtles. With the machines and the guys inside. Just because they were insane!
Yeah, I have to agree. I like the originals as well, and I have to agree with
The new ones are cool, though.
the new ones are very
really
cool.
cool.
I mean, you know,
You guys will see. They did everybody right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hello. So, I want to ask Kevin, from the original story, do you have a favorite story? If you have a favorite story arc, like Battle Nexus or Donatello went to the future?
You know, for me, it was there's so many favorite turtle stories, turtle lines. I mean, the original arc that Peter and I did, 4, 5, 6, and 7, which took them out of space, and sort of we retold the origin of the Ooze. More recently, I love the IDW City Fall series that we did. Actually, I really love the Image series that Gary Carlson and Frank Forth did. But man, it's you know, there's so much. To me, the coolest thing about my job and Peter's job when we were doing all these different turtle things, whether it's working on the original animated series or some of the movies, was the creative people we got to work with. It was always such a positive energy of wanting to create a great story, tell a great story, and make it as cool as we possibly could. So to me, there's heart and soul in each of those, but it's again, like picking your favorite children. It's hard to pick just one. But thanks. Great question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This question is for Kevin. Years ago, you made a deal with Palladium Books for the RPG. I don't remember that at all there.
I love that.
And in the last Robotech panel, they talked about how they now have made a tabletop game. Now that you're with IDW, you have a good home. And I found out a month ago that IDW has a games department. Is there a plan to make a really cool like Turtles game at all there?
And I know we talked about it at but that would be awesome. I know they took a while to get the license from Nickelodeon, and I know they have a lot of great ideas. And I personally would like to see that as much as you would. I think it would be fantastic. But I love those original Palladium games. Those are so much fun. I still don't know how to play them, but I think they're awesome.
That would be, if they can do it, that'd be wonderful, because it's not appropriate for a 3-year-old man to be playing with action figures because you can't play a board game.
I love it. Thank you. Great question.
Thank you.
Kevin, once you and Peter saw how successful Turtles was going to be, how concerned were you with Marvel's reaction to similarities with the storyline there?
Well, you know, there was so many, you know, a lot of people, what he's referring to, if you don't know, like, you know, Splinter came from Daredevil's stick. Frank Miller did this whole storyline with the ninja called the Hand. We did the Foot. I was a huge Daredevil fan from a very young child, and I always loved the idea, you know, this idea where this truck's barreling down through, filled with radioactive waste, is barreling through New York City, and this blind man sort of steps in front of the truck, and young Matt Murdock runs out and saves his life. And you know, when the truck puts on its brakes, the canister comes loose, hits him near the eyes, but they never said what happened to the canister. So that's where Peter and I picked it up, and we sort of had to continue bouncing down the street, and that's where the Turtles were sort of born. There's a bunch of Marvel lawyers in the back. No, but it was there was so many other elements in the original story that was sort of parody. We parodied, you know, New Mutants was really popular. We borrowed a lot of our favorite things from, you know, Jack Kirby comics, what Dave Sim was doing with Cerebus at the time, you know, an animal character running around like Conan the Barbarian, and so it was sort of a homage, and we got away with as much as we could, and I think it got too big before they, you know, I think they ran out of, what do they call it, statute of limitations before they could sue us. Otherwise they probably would have buried us in a grave somewhere in the desert. It was fun stuff. Came from a good place.
I'll try to preface this as best I can, as quick as I can.
We have time to gauge.
I looked at the teaser, the word phenomenon. It's a nice buzzword, but I think that's an important term to look at in regards to this. I think everybody here is going to have their memories based on various things. I've seen a lot of opinions over the years. I've been with this stuff roughly since 1986. I've seen all of this evolve into so many interesting ways. I've seen the good and the bad, the ugly, the most amazing, brightest sides that this can bring people, and the joy it can bring, and the darkest. I often look at this as the biggest double-edged sword sometimes, and there's a cathedra of voices anymore that kind of get lost and swept away. Personally, one of those voices that was in my life that really cared about this, that we're all celebrating right now, is gone. And you go downstairs, and the merch, I know it's part of the deal, but sometimes you look at that like, well, what is it all about? And sometimes you're at a crossroads. And sometimes it's like, should I still care about this? Is this important? And I know people are laughing and chuckling, but should I still care?
It made you the person you are. You're an awesome person. You've always been a great friend and great supporter, and you know, we love you. And it's like you know, I've got every single gift you've ever given me is stuck up in my studio, and I appreciate it. And you know, like every single fan here, they're sitting here at 9:15 at night because they love the Turtles and it's done something for them and it means something special, and like it has for you. That's why you're
Hey man, we spent 5.5 years of our lives making that dog.
All right.
We think it's important too.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
For real.
We have time for one more question.
Okay, I have quick ones. First is, we've seen lots of iterations. What is the definitive list of what order should I read the Ninja Turtles comics in? Where is this posted? Where's the list? Because I've read from the originals to Archie back to Tales of TMNT, and where's the list? I just want the list. Give me a link, I'll go to that.
Yeah, I'll text it to you right now.
Awesome. And then the second question I have is who are the voices that you've heard? We've heard Sean Astin voice it, James Avery voice it, right? And so many talented voice actors participate in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Whose voices do you hear as your Turtles?
Great. Quickly, I think that a lot of people don't know, I mean, there's so much turtle material out there, but Peter and I did the first 15 issues together. That was issues 1 through 11, then a one-issue micro shot, and one issue on each of the turtles. That to me is everything that became later, everything the turtles became after that. That's the original series. That's sort of the foundation of everything was built upon. So that's what I would say is, you know, basically those 15 issues is a great place to start. And then there's so many other variations beyond that. But that would be, I'd recommend, a place to start. And then I had the good fortune of working with the folks at Nickelodeon on the new animated series. And when I met the voice of Michelangelo, Gregory Michael Sipes, it's like, not only is this guy, to me, not only is like the perfect Michelangelo voice, and I've loved all the voices, don't get me wrong, but when you meet the man, he is a living, breathing Michelangelo. He seriously is. He takes martial arts, the stuff that he does, the way he acts, it's like, he really didn't have to act that much for that role, and he's a fantastic human being, and but that's one of my favorite voices of all of them. But, Michelangelo, Gregory
Awesome. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
There's also the Playmates Toys panel talking about more Turtles tomorrow at 2 p.m. in room 23 ABC. So pick one of those letters. I'm sure they all connect.
More sneak peeks for the dog.
Yeah, and